All right, so we are starting a new section in the Peace Pilgrim. We're on page 106, and the title of this section is called The Strange Creature Called Man. Yes, and since I'm in a class of all women, I just think it should be pointed out that the strange creature called man is not the male, it's all of us, it's mankind. Right? So I don't want any celebration that we're going to be talking about this strange creature called a man. This is humankind. An outsider view that this strange creature called man, oh, here we go. An outsider might view, there was the missing word. An outsider might view this strange creature called man this way. A being, let me do that real quick. A being from another world parked his spaceship in an isolated spot. The next morning, he passed a military camp where he saw men sticking knives fastened to odd-looking poles into bags of straw. "What is this?" he asked a uniformed youth. "Bayonet practice," answered the youth. "We're practicing on dummies. We have to learn to use the bayonet a certain way to kill a man. Of course, we don't kill many men with bayonets. We kill most of them with bombs." "But why should you want to learn to kill men?" exclaimed the being, aghast. "Oh, we don't," said the youth bitterly. "We are sent here against our will, and we don't know what to do about it." That afternoon, the being passed through a large city. He noticed a crowd gathering in a public square to see a uniformed youth being decorated with a medal. "Why is he being decorated with a medal?" inquired the being. "Because he killed 100 men in battle," said the man beside him. The being looked with horror upon the youth who had killed 100 men and walked away. In another part of the city, a being heard a radio announcing loudly that a certain man was soon to be executed. "Why is he to be executed?" asked the being. "Because he killed 2 men," said the man beside him. The being walked away bewildered. That evening, after the being had thought the matter over, he opened his notebook and wrote, "It seems that all youth are forced to learn how to kill men efficiently. Those who succeed in killing a large number of men are rewarded with medals. Those who turn out to be poor killers and succeed in killing only one or a few men are punished by being put to death." The being shook his head sadly and added a postscript. "It looks as though this strange creature called man will exterminate himself very quickly." A vision of hope for peace. At the end of my 45-day period of prayer and fasting, as I lay between sleeping and waking, a wonderful vision came to me. A vision of hope. I saw the nations of the world arming for war. I spoke to them, but they would not listen. I wept for them, but they paid no attention. I prayed for them, and then I looked about me and I saw the people of the world were praying with me. Next, I noticed that a luminous mist was rising above us as we prayed, and it gradually took form. A radiant figure emerged, whose white robes were so full of light, whose face was so bright I could scarcely look at it. When the figure spoke, the gentle voice had the power of thunder. "Put up your swords," the figure said. "Those who take the sword shall perish by the sword." And the nations of the world looked up startled and dropped their armaments, and the people of the world rejoiced together. More thoughts on peace and disarmament. I would like to emphasize again that right prayer leads to right action, that faith without works is dead. An excellent way to put thoughts into action is to write a letter for peace. Right? That might be something I ought to do, actually. Write a letter to Congress for peace, for sanity. Yeah, I think that would be a very good idea, actually. Disarmament is slow in materializing, partly because fear is so prevalent, partly because there are vain hopes that arms might still accomplish some desired objective, partly because some economics seem to be functioning rather profitably in a situation of war preparation. And of course, we leave out the most obvious one there, perhaps because of egoism. I'm separate and different from you. I'm small and weak and must overpower you, or vice versa. The New Age demands higher values. Those who spoke of peace were once called idealists. But in this nuclear age, the idealists have become only realists. We have always thought of ourselves as having high ideals. Let us apply some of them to this crisis situation. Believing that the war is contrary to the will of God and to common sense, and feeling that the way of peace is the way of love, I shall work for peace by using the way of love myself, by helping any group I am part of, any group that I am a part of, to use it, by helping the nation of which I am a citizen to use it, by helping the United Nations to use it, and by praying that the way of love be used all over the world. You know, there's this idea here. This might be this is for a conversation. So we're having a conversation in the middle of class. So feel free to join in here. Don't leave me conversing to myself. What do you think about this? War is bad, right? Is her definite definition there, and it must be stopped. And yet, war is everywhere. You know, our scriptures are filled with war. What does that what do you think about that? Is that bothersome? Uh, how is it that somehow war seems to be part of the divine process, and yet everybody universally will agree that it's a horrible thing?
Is she talking about the Vietnam War? Is that what's going on in her?
No, I don't think it's a particular war. I think she's talking about the Cold War in her days. The arms race, the period of time in our history. I only remember when I was a very young boy. That you would have to do these bomb, nuclear preparation practices in school. You know, literally where we would climb under our desk. You know, and
Well, yeah.
as an adult, I think, what a ridiculous.
You know,
What is climbing under my desk going to do in the event of an atomic bomb?
as many things in life, it doesn't seem black and white.
Yeah, but how can it not be black and white? You know what I mean? It's like, what is the good side of war? Let's put it that way. What is the argument for war?
To me, Swami, this is Haima. To me, the war is not going to resolve the conflict. It's going to make more conflicts, create more conflicts. So
Yes.
it may subside for a while, and again 10 years later, there you go. Because it's cooking in some people's hearts. Because if your whole family dies, definitely you would go into depression. You would be really, if you're an angry person, you would definitely want revenge.
Yeah.
If you're really, really spiritual person like we are here, we may not go for that type of revenge. But everybody's emotional intelligence is different. So their state of mind is different. But when you lose the whole family, whole house, everything is bombed, it's going to create a lot of depression and sadness, and it's you want to take revenge, and then it may come back and haunt again, and then it's like a cycle, keeps going. If you look at the history, that's how it's been. There's always a dictator is born, and there's always good people came, and then again dictator, again few times good people. So it just kept on. So it's not going to end at all unless we make peace completely, peace negotiations. Like Woodrow Wilson said, friendship is the only cement that will ever keep the world together.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So I think that establishes, though, that war is not the problem.
It's the minds.
Right. It's an internal problem. It's an
Somebody
external manifestation of an internal condition.
internal issue. People who are unhappy, they are maybe born unhappy or they are just
Well,
developed.
maybe not just unhappy, but maybe threatened,
Right. It depends
or
on their childhood too.
exhausted of abuse.
Yes,
You know.
some child abuse is their background. Exactly. There is a couple of reasons. Some genetically, some people are born narcissist. Some develop along with it if it's not corrected in the childhood and it gets worse. So they like people being, they kind of, what is a word I forgot. They kind of thrive on somebody being unhappy.
Hmm.
See, narcissism is not easy to get rid of. It's very, very, very narcissistic personality disorder is very, very difficult. It's extremely difficult. First, the person has to realize, and then they have to work. And then the realization doesn't come easily for those people.
Hmm.
They are always right. I am right. You are all, everyone else is wrong around. So that's how authoritarianism continued. Hitler had a horrible childhood. When I went to Austria, I went through the Dachau Memorial. The lady gave the presentation. Amazing. We all cried looking at that. But he had a horrible childhood that just made him such a dictator. So there are people who are doing that. If we really go back to 2 or 3 generations, you will see how their childhood was. And then unfortunately, they're smart. They come up to the highest positions. Somehow they get there. They crawl into those positions because
Hmm.
they got that smartness, not really governing smartness.
Right. Not refined. So I
Yeah,
guess, I mean, it
that's
seems
how.
maybe this is why she starts at the beginning of her book. I'm just wondering because it seems like she's changing the tone a little bit here in that she's, uh, really talking about the United Nations needs to do this and people need to do that.
Yeah,
But really, it's a matter of personal work, don't you think? That the ultimate eradication of war is only
yeah.
going to happen when all of us take care of our inner divisions, right?
Hmm.
Which means basically enlightenment, because our divisions come from ego. Ego's
Yes.
job is to separate and distinguish.
The ego doesn't develop certain people. It doesn't develop. The good ego is not there. It's just
Right.
fractured, completely
Yeah.
fractured, and then this cannot be developed into a
Right.
ripened ego. Unripened ego stays with them forever.
Right. And the unripened ego is
Mhm.
is the one that tends toward violence. Right.
Violence, exactly. Unripened ego because it's self-centeredness completely. I am right. You're all wrong. The whole world is wrong for them. They only
But
know everything.
but
Right. Or,
sometimes, yeah,
uh-huh. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich.
sometimes war is also because of injustice done to the nation.
Right.
Like,
They've been
for instance, it happens sometimes in like people got killed because of no fault of them, and then to retaliate that, people go for war. So, how will you explain about those narcissism and all? There's no narcissism over there.
over there. What are we talking about?
What I mean to say is, supposing some injustice is done to the nation,
Uh-huh.
and then they will fight because injustice was done.
Right.
So, that type of war, uh, will you call it? It's because of the ego,
Yeah.
or
You would. It would be a collective ego, but the thing that causes you to be unjust would be selfishness, would be wanting to get the advantage for yourself and denying it to someone else. And that would be egoism. That would be an ego trying to establish
Oh, the
itself or
ego.
increase itself. Yeah.
But I think what Rajani is saying, I tell me if I'm wrong or Johnny, is she's talking about revenge, right? They weren't doing anything wrong and suddenly they got bombed and they're going to come back with
Yes.
revenge because they have to protect themselves.
Yes.
They weren't narcissistic necessarily to begin with, but they have to protect themselves, and
Oh,
revenge is,
definitely. It's like
yeah.
Yeah.
Kurukshetra war, Mahabharata war, Kurukshetra.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it
He
goes
was,
into, it is still a cycle, part of the cycle, though.
yes, like
Yeah,
Ravanasura in Ramayana.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it would still be ego.
It is
Yeah,
still the ego of the one person,
it's all ego.
ego of one or two people there,
Yeah, well,
and
that's
that
it. I mean, look at
destroys.
our situation. It's
Yes, it's
the
ego.
vast majority of the country did not want to go to war, but one person was bent on it.
I don't think it's
Nobody,
just one person, though. I mean, he's got a whole team
couple of
behind
them.
him.
Well,
Yeah,
but the
they're
team
all,
has no voice. The team has no voice. He
Yeah,
won't
that's
listen
true.
anyway. Those
That's
people
exactly
don't
right.
listen. Those
He
people don't
chooses.
listen at all. They're scared of them, actually. They're scared
mhm,
of them because they're in the highest powerful position. If
right,
you do anything, you won't have a job tomorrow morning.
right.
This war, actually, we woke up one morning, we found out there is a war. We didn't
Mm.
even know the day before. Did
Uh-huh.
we? Did any one of you know? I did not know. When I turned the TV on, boom, there's a war going on. So
Yeah.
every morning you get up, there is something new. That's how the narcissists are.
Yeah,
Narcissism is. And then there is
yeah,
another one narcissist joined, the one that is really. So two people collaborated with each other and both are in the same boat and they
yeah,
both are in a powerful position. So it's we just have to see mother
yeah,
praying for mom, divine mother, divine father. They only have to do it, correct it through people.
yeah, yeah. No, all this is very true. It's just it's so frustrating because who wants to
It
live in the
is.
world like that?
I know.
And yet it's just so prevalent and unchanging. And I
Yeah,
guess maybe that's why part of it's there. I mean, in the sense, it increases our longing for the divine. Like, oh my God,
exactly.
get me out of here.
We're
Um,
praying more now than ever before.
I
Every
am
day
too.
we
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day we pray, but now we pray maybe 24 hours a day. Whenever we're in awake position, we're praying. I am
yes,
definitely
yes,
praying.
yes.
I'm
Well,
definitely
consciously praying, right? We're
praying
always
for
we're
dharma,
always praying unconsciously.
praying for dharma all the time,
Yeah,
righteousness.
yeah.
Please uphold righteousness. Take the evil ego. That's it. Liberate us. That's my
That's
prayer. And
it.
I'm sure
This can
everybody.
add to that fire, in us.
Exactly.
It would be a
Exactly.
reason for our practice. We don't just practice for our own enlightenment, we practice for world peace, right?
Yes,
We
we do.
practice so that society will become better. Because Vivekananda says, one man meditating on a hill and realizing God does more good to humanity than 1,000 volunteers in a hospital,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
your mind enters the common consciousness in
The
realization.
positive
That's
energy send the vibrations to the
Yeah, it sends out those
hopefully.
positive
I hope
positive
so.
vibrations across the whole universe. Actually, when a person gets enlightened, there's a definite
Yeah,
some.
Maharaj, I always also think that the war happens because of the ignorance, right?
Oh
Because we
yes,
don't know our true nature and we don't know what is good and bad. We are caught up in good and bad. And at the same time, if you look at the history and all that, this has been like a part of history. Like this is Maya, right? The war between good and bad. And so on one hand, I feel like I mean, even though we can envision world peace, but it's a cycle that it will keep going.
Hmm.
And I don't know if there is such thing as world peace. I don't know. Maybe it
Right.
sounds pessimistic, but it feels like if I look at the history, when was it really world peace?
Yeah,
yeah, no, that's very true, isn't it? So
yeah.
it's kind of an ongoing thing. Of course, we could always take it, like the story in the Gita. That's always told, and actually, most spiritual people, when they talk about a war, they'll talk about like the war in the Bhagavad Gita is not about the war externally. It's about our internal war,
Mm-hmm.
right? And really, I guess the whole world. Maybe if what the sages say that there is no interior and exterior, there's only internal, right? And so the world is within us, and so our internal struggles are manifesting as external violence. right? But the source of it is still the center of ourself, our imbalance within ourself. And that egoism, that is ignorance, right? Ignorance, that's not knowing who we are.
And nothing is
So,
ever enough for that persons.
right.
Nothing is ever enough. They always have to have more. It's not enough. More, more, more.
Yes, it's because all you get is nothing.
Eventually they dig their own grave. They do. If you look at the history, history is really there.
Right.
Hitler dominated, but at the end, he killed his wife and he killed himself in the basement.
Yeah.
So these things, but yes, there will be violence, there will be unhappiness.
Yes. Did you have your hand raised, Heidi?
No?
Oh, okay. I saw it with like this for a minute, and I thought, oh,
Sorry.
no
I just,
worries.
I just wanted to say too, like, just from my experience, like, never lose the space for grace, because like I used to live in a situation where it was literally a war zone every day for 20 years. And the narcissistic that you talk about, I lived with that. And it's, my goodness, one of the strongest forms I could even try to create in this person. But grace does happen. I watched that change by grace. And with work, I mean, to fight through a mind like that is it takes effort on the devotee's part as well. But grace brought them there, and I have been like a testimony to that grace where
Mhm.
you know the unchangeable changed before departing this world. So you know the war stopped in our house, and within me there was a war going on, and with constant work and with grace, it became more tolerable, to see God even in those forms. Eventually it happens, it's just we're working on a collective consciousness in a whole world that seems to be the breeding ground for working out the karmas.
Yeah.
But it just always reminds me that you can't defeat the war out there, but you can defeat the one inside. And that
Yes.
thing's powerful that it will attach to what's next to it, regardless of where it's at. Never undermine that power. And I just wanted to say that, like, the narcissist can change by grace. They don't always kill their spouse, and I can testify to that. So
Yes.
If we have faith in God, yes, narcissists will move us towards God's more. If we have faith in God, we are going to move towards, and we find inner peace.
yeah,
We
Yeah.
find inner peace. Grace always gives us inner peace.
Yeah.
Definitely. Totally agree with you, Narayani.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Narayani. I know you've been through some stuff. So it's good. All these things, I mean, that's one takeaway for sure, is if you keep your eyes on the beloved and you use those realities for understanding the world, it's a lot easier to navigate it, to have something within yourself that you can turn to, some strength within yourself that you can develop and find that carries you through, because I think that hope, that inspiration of the divine presence, and the practice of spiritual life, which keeps you getting up and trying again, getting up and trying again, getting up and trying again, that this builds in us an inner strength, and an inner awareness, our wrestling with our own shortcomings, which seem to just be so insistent and so difficult. The wrestling with that is what teaches us the depth of grace. Because regardless of what you think, if you've done something for the 10,000th time and you go to the God in prayer, if you can stay in that prayer and you can ask forgiveness again and, set your heart in the right direction and get up and try again, you've learned something very important. You've learned the validity of yet another chance. And you'll feel that inside, when you go to the beloved with a contrite heart, let's put it in those words, that God is available, that Oh, there it is, a senior moment. There it is, just happened. Complete emptiness. Didn't know what can't remember what we were talking about. Holy cow, that's crazy. All right. I'm going to edit that out.
I thought Peace Pilgrim was walking during the Vietnam War time, like Regina mentioned. I also was thinking she
No,
probably was talking about
the 50s,
Vietnam.
that was in the late 60s.
Right.
She was walking in the 50s, I think, wasn't she? When it was
The 50s? Really?
I thought so, during the Cold War.
Mm.
Anyway, I should look that up in her
Really?
at
Okay.
the beginning. Oh, here's a good point. Here's our okay, she says, believing that the war is contrary to the will of God and to common sense, and feeling that the way of peace is the way of love, I shall work for peace by using the way of love myself, right? By helping any group I am a part of. This is that making yourself available. I think maybe it's the way she talks that's putting that idea in my head that's lately where we just walk around being available to God at every moment. Not to just, it's hard when we just, maybe this is helpful actually, because it's hard to remember God, right? When you don't know why, or when you don't have a reason why, right? But then when you hold on to God, because you are being available for service, or you hold on to God so that you don't miss an opportunity to be kind or to reach out and help, and so that to remember that remembering God is remembering the best thing about you. Remembering God is remembering the love that you have to share, that you have to give to people. Remembering God is your strength. It's what will keep you from returning to your addictions. It gives you that oasis to hold on to carry you through a difficult time. It gives you the strength to say no to that 14th piece of chocolate cake, right? And so the thought of God is what gives you your self-confidence, to remind you that you're valuable by default because you have within you a divine principle, the image of God. And so you know that your value comes from something that can't be taken away from you. And so you can find your strength and your voice on that platform inside. It'll be your strength when others are diminishing you. It'll be your strength in a bad marriage, to find to reconstruct your inner peace, to find your inner collectedness, to get yourself together and to do the necessary, protect your children, be with the family. The thought of God is not just about knowing ourselves. I mean, the thought of God is really the antidote to all of our psychological shortcomings and all of our physical shortcomings. God is what inspires us. God is what gets us up to try again. God is what keeps us investigating how our way around obstacles, no matter how many of them appear to us, right? I think of Lalita when she had that stroke and she lay there for a full year weeping in distress about her situation. It was God in that year that taught her that she was still whole, that she as a person was not diminished. It was the body that was diminished. And it was the thought of God that got her up to try again and to reconsider. And ultimately, it was God that inspired her to get out of her bed, right? To get in her wheelchair and to go around the old folks' home, telling jokes to brighten everybody's day, even though she herself couldn't walk anymore, couldn't dress herself, couldn't even take herself to the bathroom. This is what God is. And, some people will call it an opiate. Some people will call it an imaginary friend you depend on. But ultimately, what's that? I mean, yeah, it's it's a, what would you call it, a trump card, a trump card for getting in touch with your inner character, right? Because the thought of God builds character. The thought of God inspires you to get up and try again. The thought of grace deepens your reliance on that love. It deepens your understanding of what a real love is able to forgive. When you stand there in front of God, having no justification for your promising to do better, when you have messed up 1,000 times in a row, it is grace that even in that hopeless situation, it's the hope in grace. And that hope in grace makes you stand up and try again. And eventually you're successful. And then you understand how deep love is, how many times you might have to get up and try again. And the fact that God supports you in that every time, because we know that God is love. And in Corinthians, it says, love always hopes. So we know that God always hopes in you. We know that love always trusts, right? That God always trusts you. And we know that that hope always believes, our love always believes. And so God never gives up on you. And that final thing, love never fails. God never fails us. If we can manage to turn to him or her, that there will be no failure. We are guaranteed our success in this inner battle, right? And transcendent to our struggles and our inner ignorance, right? And so, yes, the way of love is the only way. And this war thing starts in here. And so, please, all of us must take our practice more seriously. It's not just about liberation, right? It's about manifestation, a manifestation of the one ideal of pure love that can save us, that can bring us home in that. Yes, by praying that the way of love be used all over the world. I would say to the military, yes, we need to be defended. Yes, we need you. The Air Force can clean up the air. The Marines can take care of the despoiled forests. The Navy can clean the oceans. The Coast Guard can take care of the rivers. The Army can be used to build adequate drainage projects to prevent floods and other such benefits for mankind. That would be delightful. We limit ourselves by thinking that things can't be done. Right? We limit ourselves by thinking things can't be done. Many think peace in the world is impossible. Many think that inner peace cannot be attained. It's the one who doesn't know it can't be done who does it. It's the one who doesn't know it can't be done that does it. That is a beautiful sentence. That is a beautiful, beautiful sentence, because how much do we owe to those people that didn't know it couldn't be done, right? Those single souls that changed a world because they believed, they trusted, they knew, right? Wonderful idea. The basic cause of all of our difficulties is immaturity, right? A green ego, unripened ego. That's why I talk so much about peace within ourselves as a step toward peace in our world. If we were mature, war would not be possible and peace would be assured. In our immaturity, we do not know the laws of the universe, and we think evil can be overcome by more evil. One symptom of our immaturity is greed, making it difficult for us to learn the simple lesson of sharing. Now, I realize that sometimes the symptoms become so acute that if we don't work on them, we might not survive the work on the cause, to work on the cause. So during the war in Vietnam, here we go, I did participate in some peaceful peace demonstrations. That was an amazing time. The people of this country stopped the war in Vietnam in spite of the government. It just shows the power of the people of this country. Then there are symptoms of symptoms, like extensive starvation. I would like to give everyone access to pure food, to pure water, and pure air. I would like to be able to supply all their material needs and also give them access to good food for thought and beautiful surroundings and all things that inspire. You don't have to be very good at arithmetic to figure out that if the nations of the world would stop manufacturing implements of destruction, the conditions for a very good life could be provided for all people. Oh boy, that's, it's painfully true. If you look at the amount of money that this country, that America, spends on defense, it's more than double what second place does. If we had spent that, my God, providing health care, providing child care, providing education, providing, to my Lord, truly, if we spent as much money that we've spent so far on the war, if we had spent that on the things that people need, it would be with just that $11 billion investment, we could have changed the course of this country, right? This is why it is so important to do our practice. Do our practice, do our practice, do our practice. We must walk according to the highest light that we have, encountering lovingly those who are out of harmony and trying to inspire them toward a better way. Whenever you bring harmony into any unpeaceful situation, you contribute to the cause of peace. When you do something for world peace, peace among groups, peace among individuals, or your own inner peace, you improve the total peace picture. We must never forget that disobedience to God's laws brings disaster, although people eventually do learn from their own mistakes. Right? So never forget that the disobedience to God's laws brings disaster. You could say that in another way, the same thing. You could say disobedience to your inner nature, to your divine nature, is what causes this, That way so the person you're talking to doesn't have to know and believe in God. You just tell them your inner nature doesn't go for this. We don't like it when our friends die, when our parents die, when violence destroys our love. When you do something for world peace, peace among groups, peace among individuals, or your own inner peace, you improve the total peace picture. Now, let's look at our world, a poor, war-weary world. What's the matter with us? We're so way off on the material side. Even if we do not have it, we desire it. We are so lacking on the spiritual side. Whenever we discover all the technological advances, the first thing we do is to turn them into weapons and then turn them to kill people. This is because our spiritual well-being lags so far behind. The valid research for the future is on the spiritual side. We need to bring the two into balance so that we'll know how to use well the material well-being we already have. During the war in Vietnam, there was intense peace activity. When the war was finished, there was a letdown and a period of apathy resulted. I suppose this was inevitable. It happened after every war. It happens after every war. After every war, there is also a period of violence. I saw it after both World War I and World War II. I remember after World War II, a man in Camden, New Jersey, had just killed 5 people on the street. And when they grabbed him, he said, "You taught me to kill." He was taught by the military. The man who shot from the University of Texas Tower and killed 15 people and wounded others was taught by the military during the Vietnam War. Right. The price of peace. We seem always ready to pay the price for war. Almost gladly we give our time and our treasure, our limbs and even our lives for war. But we expect to get peace for nothing. We expect to be able to flagrantly disobey God's laws and get peace as a result. Well, we won't get peace for nothing, and we won't get peace by disobeying the laws of God. We'll get peace only when we are willing to pay the price of peace. And to a world drunk with power, corrupted by greed, deluded by false prophets, and the price of peace may seem high indeed, for the price of peace is obedience to the higher laws. Evil can only be overcome by good, and hatred by love. Only a good means can attain a good end. The price of peace is to abandon fear and replace it with faith, right? A faith in grace, a faith in love, right? Faith that if we obey God's laws, we will receive God's blessings. The price of peace is to abandon hate and to allow love to reign supreme in our hearts, right? So when we sit there and watch the news, we feel that anger rising up inside. At that moment, squelch it out. At that moment, pick up your scriptures and see why it's not right to think that way, to feel that way. Feel the contraction in yourself when that feeling starts to arise, right? So that we don't get manipulated and put out these energies, these thoughts, because thoughts affect the world, right? Everything in the world begins with a thought. And even our unwanted thoughts of revenge or thoughts of, justice, if they're violent, right? And so when you feel the small things happening, don't let them take charge of you. We need our army of peace to be thoroughly peaceful, right, in our own selves, to do that purity, that purifying inside, chanting God's name, and singing his glories, and meeting with each other, serving each other, lifting each other up, making sure that we talk about these things and converse about these things so that we can maintain a balance, so that we can be a difference in the world. We have to guard ourselves so that we don't bow our heads to the same forces, right? But that we stay aware and always aware of our inner peace, our inner nature of peace. Love for all our fellow human beings all over the world. The price of peace is to abandon arrogance and replace it with repentance and humility, remembering that the way of peace is the way of love. The price of peace is to abandon greed and replace it with giving, so that none will be spiritually injured by having more than they need, while others in the world will still have less than they need. People of the world, the time for decision is short. It is measured in a few years. The choice is ours as to whether or not we will pay the price of peace. If we are not willing to pay it, all that we hold dear will be consumed in the flame of war. The darkness in our world today is due to the disintegration of things which are contrary to God's laws. Let us never say hopelessly, "This is the darkness before a storm." Rather, let us say with faith that this is the darkness before the dawn of a golden age of peace, which we cannot now even imagine. For this, let us hope, and let us work, and let us pray. So this dedication that she is unquestionable in her, if we could have that kind of conviction inside, that kind of dedication, right? I mean, in every way, she's a great example at these things, because these words, who cares? These words have been said so many times by so many different people, but somehow I hear hers a little bit more because I know that she gave her whole life for this, that she gave up a comfortable little home, with a nice quiet life for her own enjoyment. She literally walked out on it and never returned. I find that one of the most inspiring things about her is her willingness to put herself, put your money where your mouth is, put your money where your life is. She's putting her life where the need is, putting herself where the ideal is. It's a great example of breaking out of our bonds. There's no reason that we all have to be ordinary. There's no reasons that we all have to be locked in step, with everybody else. Be big, be amazing, be grand, be loving.
This chapter came at the right time, Swami.
Yeah.
It's a perfect timing.
Yes.
Exactly. We need more peace, inner peace.
Yes, it's uncanny how much of this we're dealing with right now. And
exactly.
The ways of peace are many, though, and we've got to constantly keep battling them. Like, when we read those headlines, we need to counter them. When you read a disturbing headline, stop for a moment and counter it with a good thought, with something positive, to keep your own mind healthy, right? To keep it from turning negative and feeling defeated, feeling isolated, feeling disappointed, feeling depression or sadness or, remorse or whatever it is. And so when something negative gets provoked inside, do anything to provoke it in the positive, to remind you of the beauty that is possible. Right? If you read something bad, imagine for a moment if it wasn't that way and how beautiful it could be, and put that thought more powerfully into the world than the thought of violence. Right? And so like that, keep yourself countered when you see horrible things happening on the television. Remember good things happening. Remember positive things as well. Right? There's a YouTube channel called, what is it called? Something Good News or something. It's a channel where they only collect news on positive things. I can't remember the name of that channel, but I don't think it'd be hard to find. But anyway, those are good ideas, to be positive, or find a positive story. And when you find a positive story, send it out, right? Send it out to people. Spread this positivity.
There was some good came out of this violence. Other countries who weren't making peace before, like India and China, they made peace with each other. A lot of other countries united. They all came together. They learned how to give and take, whether it's taxes, whatever it is. They send their resources to those countries. Those countries, they will share with other. That's the way it's supposed to be peaceful. And those countries made peace with each other. But there are few now still making it bigger and bigger. We'll have to see how it goes. Yeah, it'll
Yes.
end
No,
in
it
a
will.
positive.
It will turn out right. Probably
It
no
will,
thanks
yeah,
to
that's
the
how I
ones who
think.
started it,
It will end in a positive note at the end.
or at
I
least
think
neutral.
everything
But
is
I
for the
don't
good.
know how
Everything is
sad
for the
that so many
best.
people have to die before then, though.
I know that is true. That's true. You're right.
Yes.
Swamiji, if you have to describe disobeying the laws of God in some few points, how will you say it? That don't spread hatred, don't have peace in your mind.
I would say Satchit Ananda.
Okay.
Your nature is an unconditioned love. So it's you love regardless of the bad or the injustice done toward you. Our nature is a deep and abiding wisdom, right? A knowledge of our nature and what that nature looks like when it's manifested, when it's expressed, right? That leads us to wisdom. And then our existence, our being, the fact that we at certain points in our life feel like we have that we can actualize a reality, that we can act in the world, right? And so I would say that those are the laws of God, that divine nature is the law of God. And as long as we are obedient to our divine nature, then we are in accordance with God's law. Because really that's the sum total of God's law. My children love one another. Right? There's a wonderful story about St. John when he was exiled to the island of Patmos for being a disciple of Jesus. He lived in a cave there, and there used to be a group of exiled people on that island, and they would have a Sunday service together. And every day, because St. John was still alive, they would get a person on both sides of them, help him stand up and walk him up to the front. And every single week, history says that he said the exact same thing every time in his old age. They would lead him up there. He would stand there for a moment, compose himself, and he would always say, "Brothers and sisters, love one another." And then he would sit back down again. That's the sum total of God's law. Love one another. In that, all things are made right. Right? Love one another.